Hi, I'm Dennis Weber. I'm running for Cowlitz County Commissioner. There's no greater honor than to serve the people of Cowlitz County. That's what I've done for 8 years. And I ask for your vote for another 4 years to do the work that you want done. It's important to have government that works for you, not against you. And that's what I've been striving to do. I listen to the people and I do what I can within the law to help government serve you, not the other way around. When I first became a county commissioner and began meeting with commissioners from across the state, it never took very long before conversation began to center on the largest unlicensed mental health facility in every county. It was the county jail. Because you see, people who have trouble with drugs often also have trouble with mental health. People came to me asking that we do something about drugs and mental health. I began looking for opportunities to make a difference. One of the requesters was Community House on Broadway. They said, what can you do to help us address the mental health side of homelessness? We provided them with a grant for staff training to make them eligible to receive Medicaid dollars. And the result of that was the creation of Core Health. It's been great to watch the growth of Core Health as they have been addressing mental health problems in our community. You may have also noticed the expansion of Columbia Wellness, another agency that is getting grants to provide more community mental health. You see, the problem was, a few years ago, we were not able to get our fair share of Medicaid dollars to help people with mental health and behavioral health problems. I've been working during my time as your county commissioner to address those problems, and we're continuing to fight to make sure we get our fair share of Medicaid dollars to help people with behavioral health problems like drug abuse and mental health. One of the most important things that Cowlitz County can do is to work with our major employers to ensure that they have the infrastructure to bring products to the market and to bring the raw materials to get the manufacturing done. That also involves the importance of managing our landfill. When a county commissioner advocated for turning over private control of the landfill to a private company, I finally said, no, that's not going to help Cowlitz County. I worked with leaders of industry and city leaders to come up with a management plan that will make our landfill not only a profit maker for you, the owners of that landfill, but to make it more environmentally responsible. We are excited at the revenues that have been produced by bringing in expensive outside refuse, while at the same time maintaining the lowest rates for us here in Cowlitz County, this side of the Cascade Mountains. We're standing across the street from Victoria Freeman Park, which was the scene of one of the most successful peaceful protests in Longview's history. It happened back in 2007. I was mayor at the time, and one afternoon my staff came to me with information that a church had rented McClellan Arts Center, which is the building just on the other side of Victoria Freeman Park. I said, what's the problem with that? We have the First Amendment right that protects people's worship freedom. They said, well, you might want to check out their website. And lo and behold, it wasn't a typical Christian traditional church. It was a church that preached white supremacy. And of course, Victoria Freeman was the woman who forced the Longview Public Schools to desegregate. They wanted to be here on purpose. What do? They didn't want to move to another location. And so I appointed a special committee consisting, co-chaired by former Mayor Ramona Lieber, to organize an appropriate community protest. She and her co-chair sponsored a meeting at LCC, and the folks there organized a protest march for the day of the very first church service. And the march was held all the way from Civic Center Park to this very location. And the folks infiltrated, not really infiltrated, they went to the church service. They were the only ones there. And all they did was stare down the pastor. After a few moments, he recognized the inevitability. He said, it's obvious we're not welcomed in Longview. I guess we'll close. It was quite a victory for nonviolent protest. It was quite a victory for Cowlitz County values. Interestingly, the only city councilman voting against that resolution is now trying to defeat me in my race for re-election to county commissioners. To his credit, however, he and his wife did join the march as we paraded that day in in the name of racial equality. 2 years later, I received a letter from that church leader apologizing to me and to the community for what he had put us through. He realized the error of his ways. It was a great experience. Nonviolent protest peacefully is an appropriate way to protest our concerns. One of the most important things public officials have to do is to listen to the people. From day one, the first complaint I received had to do with a building and planning department that was out of control and unresponsive to the needs of the people. We got in there, we reformed the department. They now say, how can we help you, rather than, no, you cannot. Our department gets accolades all the time from folks who say how willing they are to work with builders and homeowners, trying to make people able to do with their property what they really want to do. I'm proud of the work that our building and planning department is doing today. One of the biggest challenges we face locally is to deal with the homelessness problem. The reality is that from 1,000 to 1,200 people lose their homes or are at risk of losing their homes every year. We have tremendous private organizations like Community House on Broadway that provide a lot of help for those that need a little bit of boost to get their lives back in order, get back into housing. But there are a handful that are so severely mentally ill that they can't figure out how to get out from the cold. And they end up in those encampments, those horrible places like the one down on Alabama Street. We have a plan, the Board of Commissioners has a plan that will create a hosted tent city that will provide the kind of rehabilitative services that these folks need in order to improve their lives, to stabilize their health problems, and to get them the kind of training to get back into housing on their own. I'm excited about joining with my 3 colleagues to promote a hosted tent city, and we're beginning to put the finishing touches on that proposal. It is not a replacement for the wonderful contributions that people make to organizations like Community House on Broadway or the Emergency Support Shelter, Faithful Servant, Salvation Army, all those organizations that help those. But we have this just one other little element to help complete the continuum of care for those who find themselves struggling with homelessness. Under the federal Constitution, criminals are awarded a speedy trial. One of the results is that civil cases dealing with family disputes get delayed. When I first became a county commissioner, I found out how many years behind our court system was in dealing with family law matters. We worked long and hard to try to get the financing together to bring an additional Superior Court judge. In this election, for the first time, Cowlitz County voters will be choosing 5 Superior Court judges. Before the pandemic hit, they were well on their way of meeting reasonable records and in determining cases in a timely manner. I'm proud of the fact that we've addressed the concerns of the people by bringing more resources to our justice system. I want to talk to you about what we've done with regards to the pandemic. First off, we issued an emergency declaration back in March that enabled us to mobilize the support for the PPEs and other kinds of vital equipment our first responders needed. And I can assure you that the hospital behind me has adequate supplies to handle anyone who comes down with the coronavirus 19. However, we've been criticized on the county commission for both advocating opening the county too soon and at the same time being too much of a hurry to open up the county. And it's been a very difficult issue to deal with, because the fact of the matter is the county's emergency declaration did not shut down any businesses. Only the state has the power to do that, and only the state can open up those businesses. However, I hold a candle to no one in our complaining to Olympia about the unfair rules and regulations, such as the ones that say box stores, liquor stores, and marijuana stores are essential businesses, while churches, libraries, and museums need to be closed down. These kinds of inappropriate rules just don't make sense here in Cowlitz County. At the same time, we've had some irresponsible elected officials demanding that we approve a resolution unilaterally opening up Cowlitz County businesses, an action that our own attorneys, the prosecuting attorney, has told us would jeopardize our jobs because we would be violating our oath of office. Instead, we've toned down those resolutions. There have been 4 of them, and we've insisted that the rules always include personal responsibility for personal hygiene, for masking, for social distancing, and for self-quarantining. There currently are absolutely no Cowlitz County residents hospitalized. I hope those numbers stay down. We have almost 25% or 20% of Cowlitz County population who has been tested for COVID, and we only have about 700 or so cases that have been reported. We're doing incredibly well, and we need to continue to do that in order to keep the numbers down. I'm happy of the job that we have done, and we will continue to do, letting Olympia know that we're ready to go to the next phase, doing what we can to open up Cowlitz County. It's long past due. Behind me, you'll see the hills between us and Mount St. Helens. There was a day from this spot you could see the mountain before it erupted in 1980. That seems an awful long time ago, but the sediment is continuing to flow down the Toutle and Cowlitz valleys. That becomes a concern because most of the people in Cowlitz County in the Longview-Kelsey area live behind levees and dikes to keep the floodwaters away. When the sediment fills up the valley between the dikes, our flood protection disappears. The federal government is supposed to monitor that and do the dredging as necessary. But for some reason, in 2015, the federal government stopped paying for monitoring the sediment flow. That increasingly became a problem as we see more and more sandbars in the Cowlitz River. That means our flood protection is at risk. Finally, I went back to Washington, D.C. We found out who the bureaucrat was in charge of that budget decision. We laid out a plan. We laid out the evidence that the sandbars were there. And he said, you know, this is the best presentation I've heard. I'll see what I can do to get the money and the monitoring started again. And I'm glad to report that this fall, that money was restored in this year's budget, and we're well on our way to getting it returned to the budget for next year.